In response to the video, are perpetual motion machines possible? Specifically, the excerpt that starts at 3 minutes and 26 seconds when she describes the drinking bird toy is not a perpetual motion machine, and why? Because she can explain it in terms of physics, as opposed to not being able to explain it in terms of anything, and that makes it a perpetual motion machine by her implication, her use of the term perpetual motion machine. I didn't know what it meant. I mean, people use it all the time. They use it in my face, and I don't know what it means. And they go ballyhooing whatever it is I'm trying to describe to them, and I don't know enough of it to describe to them, and so, you know, all the details, maybe I just know some general overview, and they don't get it, and they don't see the point that it could be possible. So if I'm not a perfectionist and extremely thorough in my analysis, then it's very easy to ballyhoo and say it's a perpetual motion machine. But in this little excerpt, she does a good job of analyzing the drinking bird, and so thus she determines that it is not a perpetual motion machine. Well, I didn't know that that's what the meaning of perpetual motion machine is, something you cannot explain. And I was told, oh, go take a physics course and pass it and show me your credentials, and then I'll listen to you, because you won't be able to present your device anymore because it can't be explained. So it's perpetual motion, and go find out for yourself what we already know, and then don't bother us. It's really a question of harassment. They're using weird tactics to protect themselves from harassment, when in reality it's just a dysfunction up here that's causing them to think that they're being harassed. Well, this physics girl, that's the name of her YouTube channel, she explains the drinking bird toy very astutely, all thoroughly analyzed, describes it. Great job, Dudette. But if that's all it takes to make something not a perpetual motion machine, is to explain it in graphic detail, using either thermodynamics or physics or mechanical engineering, whatever, chemistry, electrical engineering, you name it, if it cannot be explained, then it must be perpetual motion. Well, the problem with that is, if you haven't explained it yet, it doesn't mean it's perpetual motion. It just means it's a candidate for perpetual motion until it's explained. So nothing that's, by that use of the term that she's using it, she's implying that nothing is definitively called a perpetual motion machine, cannot be definitively called. It is simply a candidate until somebody comes up with an explanation in terms that we know, rock solid science. So you see, this is language. If you don't study grammar, language, and the logic behind the use of the language that you're speaking in, you don't realize what you're doing when you use these terms. And it's like, huh? What? Perpetual motion? What's that? Just as a means to ballyhoo someone. No, it's simply to undermine their credibility because nobody's been able to explain it yet. But hey, she explained the drinking bird or dunking bird toy, and hey, that means it's not a perpetual motion machine anymore, even though it keeps going. Even though there's no way that glass of water that bird is dunking into is ever going to heat up or change the temperature of the room. Now, it may use up the glass. In fact, the glass will simply evaporate before even the bird uses it up. So it's not a perpetual motion machine. You have to keep adding water. Yeah, but if you keep adding... They called Stanley Meyer's water-fueled dune buggy a perpetual motion machine, and thus it's a fraud. Yet he had to keep adding water to the tank. He had to keep adding air to the air intake because he never told anybody that he was using nitrogen from the air and converting it into ammonia and hydrazine on board as he was driving, as well as splitting water to get the hydrogen so that he could make ammonia as he drove by using high voltage, positive 70,000 volt positive ionization of the air and high voltage of the hydrogen, and thus could then unite them without getting water and getting ammonia instead, and still have a little hydrogen left over because the way he blended it left the remaining, And he used the hydrogen to ignite the ammonia because the ammonia doesn't ignite very well, but it has very good characteristics to expand inside the piston, to drive that piston so you could accelerate up a hill on that synthetic fuel mixture of ammonia with a little hydrogen to give it a kick. And so because Stanley Meyer kept everything a secret, he never bothered to, in court, explain himself. An Ohio court judge found it fraud, and please, Stanley, you are required to return the money that your investor from Alaska gave you. You know, it was something like $300,000. All because Stanley Meyer wanted to keep it secret. Oh, I want to keep it secret. And then he dies. And he takes the secret with him. And it takes Aaron Murakami to spread it around at waterfuelsecrets.com what the secret is. That is available in the earlier Canadian patents. But later on, he doesn't give away the secret. He just says non-combustible gases. Yeah, well, inert gases. Well, that's nitrogen, dinitrogen. You have to. It's inert. You got to split it, and then when you make it monoatomic, then you can use it to make ammonia, and you don't have to use power. You use voltage without amperage. Just like you can split water the same way. It's called voltrolysis as opposed to electrolysis because you don't use amperage, you use voltage. And it helps to use high frequencies, certain frequencies in the megahertz range. But it's mainly you use voltage, so you don't use any watts. So he was able to use his battery to power his circuitry to make synthetic fuel on demand out of water and air. This is important. And this is the only way to properly analyze the fuel air bombs that the Nazis used against the Russians on the Russian front during World War II. They blew up a canister of very microfine carbon, which created a cloud, a dispersion cloud of carbon in the air, and a quarter second later they would ignite the fuel, let's say gasoline. And it detonated with such a force that it was, people thought they were having a neutron bomb go off or something. And so the Russians said, hey, you do that again and we'll bring out the mustard gas from World War I. And so the Nazis stopped. So how does it work? Well, when it spreads the carbon field, it also ignites it electrostatically with a very high voltage charge. Because carbon is a semiconductor. And that split the nitrogen, the dinitrogen in the air, and only momentarily, just long enough for the fuel to be ignited. Now, why would monoatomic nitrogen form ammonia spontaneously in the air? Because of the moisture in the air. We go back to Sir Humphrey Davy, 1807. Electrolytic hydrogen will form in the presence of water, while normal hydrogen will not. And what that's saying is that if you split the hydrogen in the air, and that becomes monoatomic in the presence of water, you will automatically get ammonia. So there's a guy, Peter Painter, Petros Zagraphos, or Zographos, I forget the exact spelling in the Greek of this inventor. He's got a motorcycle, it shows on YouTube, and he bubbles air through the electrolytic chamber in which he splits the water to create hydrogen. And that means he's actually creating ammonia as well. Small amounts, not like Stanley Meyer did it more efficiently, because he's just a motorcycle engine. How much does it need? It doesn't have to be perfect. And he's able to run it on water without understanding maybe that he's creating ammonia. That's what it looks like, that he doesn't understand. At least he doesn't explain it to anybody. And I don't think he knows. He just found out, as inventors do, try this, try that. Oh, it helps if I bubble the air through when I'm making the hydrogen. So it's these kinds of things. If we can't explain it, then it must be perpetual motion, and thus it must be fraud. All we have to do is explain it, and it's not fraud. It's not perpetual motion machine anymore. Whoopie-doo! Thank you, physics girl. You have given me the definition to a term used in my face by very not friendly people talking down to me, because I simply didn't know how to explain it properly to show them, hey, it could be possible. And that's the only reason why they were shouting down at me. See, I was just, I'm not hiding my eyes. I was trying to look at my text here, but I'm not reading from the text anyway, so I don't even need these. But anyway, shades my eyes. Good shades. Pinhole glasses. Anyway, so, thank you, physics girl, for giving me what I need. Understanding English. as it is used today. Never again will I have to suffer the wrath of somebody pointing their finger at me, because I better be ready to explain to them. And if I'm not, hey, I'll get ready. Practice makes perfect, right?